On this episode, we're talking about foster care, and me and my guest, Tami Carson with Utah Foster Care, not only talk about the good and necessary work that many foster parents do in our communities, but we also go over the Care Communities program, which is a unique program here in Utah where members of the community can come together and form a group to support a foster care family. So, if you are interested in getting involved in this kind of work or supporting the vulnerable children in your own community, listen to this great conversation. Welcome to the Do Something More podcast, the show all about service where we highlight the helpers who inspire us all to do something more. If you're passionate about nonprofits or looking for simple ways to volunteer and give back to the causes that matter to you, this is the podcast for you. I'm your host, Melissa Draper. Stick around and I'll show you all the many ways anyone can truly make a difference in our world today. Welcome to this episode of the podcast. And today we are going to be talking about foster care, a topic that I have not addressed here on the podcast yet, but I think is important to talk about it and the good work that so many in our communities are doing to support children in foster care. So today on the podcast, I have the Director of Community Volunteers with Utah Foster Care, Tami Carson. Tami, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me on with you today, Melissa.
Well, I'm excited to talk about this and learn little bit more. We're going to go into foster care a little bit and also the Care Community program that we do here in the state of Utah. But let's just start off with you introducing yourself a little bit, and then we'll get into that.
Thank you so much. I have worked for Utah Foster Care for 7.5 years. I'm a late bloomer. I finished my education somewhere in my 40s and did my internship with Utah Foster Care 7.5 years ago. And so fortunate to be able to enter this work that I didn't even know I would fall in love with, and worked in the recruitment part of our organization first, where I would meet with people who want to be foster parents. And then I started working in what we call retention, which are the direct supports for our foster families. I loved that so much, and getting to see firsthand the good work these families are doing and provide them support. And then 2.5 years ago, the opportunity came to apply for the position to work in partnership with Utah First Lady Abby Cox for a pilot called Care Communities. And I applied for and got that position. The position is housed still within Utah Foster Care. And I could not pass up the opportunity to apply because I believe so passionately in the fact that people are good and they want to do good, but not everybody can be a foster parent. So this program gives the opportunity for people to do exactly that, to step in, provide support for foster parents who are caring for vulnerable children, and be a part of that good work. So I am a mom of 7. I have 2 stepkids and 5 of my own, and I have 3 granddaughters. Most of our kids live outside of the state of Utah, which we don't love, but thank goodness for planes and FaceTime and all of the good ways that we can stay in touch. I'm kind of a boring person at home. I like to spend time with my family and bake and read, and I like to be outdoors and spend time with my friends.
I think that sounds great. Sounds like my kind of girl. Well, let's get into just foster care in general and the people that choose to be foster care parents. What does that entail? What are some of the things and the good things that you see them doing as you've worked with some of these foster families?
I love that question because I started in recruitment. I think back to the families that I met with who were interested in foster care, and they all have something in common, which is they want to be a part of the solution for providing safety for children who have experienced trauma. And whether they come to foster care with a understanding of what that looks like, or whether they just have a heart for wanting to care for children, they come to learn what their role is as foster parents and what that looks like to support a child when they're unknown outcomes. So the goal of foster care is always reunification, which means that we're looking to heal families.
Right.
And that is sometimes a perspective shift for people who want to be foster parents. They might be coming to this work because they want to adopt or
Uh-huh.
build a family, which is beautiful, and that can happen. Or they might not be looking to adopt, but they fall in love with the children that come into their home, and that piece of reunification can be extra hard on their heart because I find that people who come to this work love those children so much. They want the very best outcome for them. And
Right.
at the same time, they can fall in love with the parents of these children who are in their home. And that's the hope and that's the goal. But it makes the whole process so emotionally challenging to
I'm
navigate.
sure. Yeah.
And and it's
Putting your heart and soul right into the middle of it all.
Yes, they do, and people who come to this work to be foster parents have big hearts, and we
Uh-huh.
want them to love these children, and we know that that's going to be very painful for them. So, in order to become foster parents, they meet with us, and then they go through all of the training and the licensing process of the home study, and then they start working with the Division of Child and Family Services, the state. They get to set their parameters for the ages of children they'd like to care for and if they're open to siblings. And then they start getting children in their home. And then we continue as part of their journey to offer them support. And I mentioned that that was my second role in Utah foster care. So, what I know to be true about foster parents is what I believe to be true about all people, that they're good and they want to do good and they just need the direction and the education to do that good in a way that is powerful for children who've experienced trauma.
Right. I could imagine it takes a lot of courage to step into that role. There's probably a lot of unknowns as they do that as well.
Absolutely. Unknowns and a lot of vulnerability. And it means that they parent differently than the rest of us that are parenting, that
Right.
they parent from that place of vulnerability. They have trauma training and they're going to respond to children in their home in a trauma informed way. And that can look very different to the rest of us, which is part of what's vulnerable and hard is that they can't share with their family or neighbors or friends details about
Mhm.
children in the home that relate to the case. And that's also isolating for them as foster parents.
Right. So that is a perfect leeway into these care communities, which is what I mainly wanted to focus on today. Is this is an effort to give that love and support and care that so many foster parents need. And I first met you because my church congregation is doing one of these care communities right now, and I've had the opportunity to lead that a little bit. And that was exactly the first thing I loved hearing about this is not everyone feels called to foster care, but those that are, it takes so much work to get to that point and for you to find them, right? And make those connections. Why are we not, as a community, supporting them and making sure that they can be successful in that role for the rest of us that might not feel called to do it? That's the goal of these care communities, right?
It absolutely is. And I love that you have this personal connection with it and you've seen firsthand what it can do for foster families. We know that they have a role that is so unique in parenting, and we know that that causes isolation, like I mentioned. So, the idea of care communities came to Utah because Utah First Lady Abby Cox is passionate about being the mom of Utah for all of these kids, right? These kids are
Mhm.
in state custody, and that means that as the governor and as his wife, that she feels very strongly about that responsibility. So she researched and found that there are some programs like this and said, let's do this here. So she recognized that need for community to step into that space you were just talking about. And most of us don't know how to do that. We would have no idea. We would be afraid we would do the wrong thing. We would be afraid that we would step into a space and do more harm than good, or we just aren't aware of how hard it is. We just think,
Right. Don't even know what to do.
don't know what to do. We don't know how hard it is. And maybe we ask questions and foster parents seem standoffish, right? Like they don't know what to ask of their neighbors in their community. So they can maybe look self-sufficient or maybe look like their life is chaos, and that would be scary to step into. So this program fills the gap. We, as you've seen in your congregation, we come in and we build a team of volunteers, and this is all
Mhm.
based. And then we give those volunteers training, and they learn about child welfare. They sign confidentiality agreements. And I'm
Right.
sure you remember signing.
Mhm. Yes.
And the importance of that is it empowers foster parents to get to know this team of people and trust them. And they then can talk to their team and all of these people serving them and serving these children about the case and about the children and about what's hard. And now we have this entire team of 8 to 10 people who are surrounding that foster family with friendship and intentional support, who can learn more about the case and the children and who have some trauma training.
Yeah, and the other piece I love about it is everybody has different strengths
Yes.
or even time that they're willing to give or all the things, and when you have a group of people, of 8 to 10 people like that, it's not on any one person. Everyone can kind of fit in where what works for them in that service as well, and so we are helping them not get burnt out, and we're not getting burnt out either. It's a beautiful kind of full circle thing.
It really is, and I love that you've seen that work in the care community that you're a part of. It's true that a team of 8 to 10 people might be doing something once a month or an hour or 2 a month. They're not serving that family every day of the week. They're not carrying that burden alone, and every care team has 2 leaders that organize the service for that care team. So they lean into what are the strengths of the people on this team. I love to see a variety of talents and skills and abilities and availability, like you said, on a team. So you may have the empty nesters who become like grandparents and aunts and uncles to these kiddos and who have a lot of bandwidth and time. You see maybe busy families, but they want to be engaged in this process. And so they build friendship with that foster family, or they invite them to do things with them and build a friendship with the children in that home. People can babysit, they can provide transportation because now we have the liability. They can do that. They can drive these kiddos around and help with appointments. They can attend court with the family. They can just do normal everyday things with this family at the same time. They can become friends and go for a walk with foster mom who maybe needs companionship, or they can invite that family over to their home. And because they have that trauma informed training, then they know what to expect more for that family and the children in
Mhm.
care. We know that trauma impacts behavior and that these sweet kiddos might have behaviors that look different than other children. And what a care team does is provide more adults who understand that and will help the foster family spend time with the foster family without judgment, because now
Right.
they understand what that family might need and why it looks the way it does.
Absolutely. Something else I love about Utah's systems, I know in other places, this has been a more faith-based through
Yes.
church congregation mine's doing it, but yours is not just that, it's also secular and businesses. You're forming these care communities just with really any group or organization that wants to get involved in this way.
Yes, and thank you for drawing attention to that. I do love that, and I love that even when it is a faith community serving, they're not necessarily serving someone of their faith. They're
Right,
serving,
right.
yeah, a foster family in their neighborhood or their area, and we've seen beautiful examples of that. We have a Presbyterian congregation who served 2 different foster moms who were single and LGBTQ and not part of their congregation. So that was beautiful. We've seen businesses step in and just serve people in their general area, not even in their own business. And now we're building care teams just from individuals. So lots of people in one town say they want to do this. We form a team, we match them to a foster family. It's not even associated with any faith.
Yeah,
And
that's great.
it is beautiful. And we knew that was important in the beginning because the other models of this program around the United States are beautiful and they really connect through certain faith congregations. We knew that could be limiting, and that in Utah, we have a lot of different faith communities in Utah that are very active, but then we have a lot of people who aren't associated with any faith. And it isn't our job as an organization to tell people how to do this within their faith or their philosophies of what service looks like, because everybody has a way that they serve.
Right.
Organization, a business, an individual, everybody has something that drives the way they serve. And it isn't our job to put that on to anyone. What our job is to do is identify their strengths.
Yeah.
What are the strengths of your service of culture as an individual or a business or a faith congregation? Doing this work in the interfaith and business community and it has been powerful for me. Personally, it's one of my favorite parts of it is that I can go into any church, congregation, business, or community and see that everybody has this good in common, right? That everyone believes that vulnerable children should have safe adults. And
Right.
everyone wants to do something about that. The majority of people can't be foster parents, like you said, but we all have that goodness in common. And we have so much more in common as people of different communities than we realize. And this program highlights that because now we're surrounding a foster family. Maybe they know some of the people on the care team if they're of the same faith, but not necessarily. And we have care teams where no one on the care team knew the foster family before they joined that team. But what they find in common is such a reminder of that core goodness that all of us have.
Yeah, as you said, most of us believe in helping and supporting vulnerable kids, and a lot of us have a desire to actually put that desire and our values into action, and so we can stand on that common ground and get to work. I think it's a beautiful thing.
It really is. It's unifying.
Absolutely. Well, we love to hear stories here on the podcast as well. So, do you have any that you can share of some of the experiences that you've seen, either of those who have been served by volunteers in these care communities or the volunteers themselves, the experiences that they've had?
I'm so glad we get to tell stories. It's my favorite part of this. I
Yes.
I feel like I could just spend my time going around and telling stories. So when we talk about confidentiality and stories, everything that I share, it will have all of the identifying factors removed from it. The reason that's so important is that children in care are in a vulnerable position where maybe there are people who shouldn't really know where they're placed.
Mhm.
And they have that right. Plus, their parents or their primary family from whom they were removed has a right to privacy, and we want to respect that. So I'm happy to share and give that little additional
Oh,
information.
caveat. Yeah, that's important
Caveat
to know
of
that
why.
you're sharing what can be shared.
I'm
Yes.
sharing what can be shared. And I want to say we have care teams around the state. So we have them in rural parts of the state, and then we have them in along the Wasatch Front. So one thing I love to share so much is the impact this has on kids in care. And we've been researching what this program does. What are the pillars of good? What are the ways we see it do good? And foster parents who've had care teams have identified those for us, right? So we talk about three main areas of impact. But when we talk about children, let's think about this care team who is filled with empty nesters. And there's a husband and wife team that are the care team leaders. This care team is now ended. They did a beautiful job of helping 8 people who were, none of them, I don't think any of them have kids left at home, but they can correct me if I'm wrong if they listen to this. But they were serving a foster family who had 8 children in their home.
Wow.
Now, right? 8
Mhm.
children under 8 years old. and
Wow. Yeah.
and that's not always what's planned, right? This family had a situation where they said yes to a sibling group that led to adoption, and then they said yes to some other siblings. And as often happens, another sibling came into care. So it wasn't necessarily their plan, and they are doing a beautiful job with all of those children. But imagine how busy that is. But now you're also dealing with the complexity of those behaviors and the challenges of things like court dates and all of that. So
Yeah, it's
this
a lot to navigate for sure.
lot to navigate, so much more than traditional parenting. So I've had the opportunity to meet some of those people who have served on that care team as well as the care team leaders. And some of my favorite stories are there was a couple on there who would drive some of the children in the home to dance practice.
Uh-huh.
So they load them up in their car, they drive them to dance practice. And this was a weekly thing, not just once in a while. And I met this couple and they were so happy to share with me their stories of the games they would play in the car with the kids on the way to dance class. They had little landmarks around town that they would spot and say, "Oh, there's another one of those and there's another one of those." Another story from that care team is that the case moved to adoption and the court was in another town. It wasn't even in the town where this care team was, but the people on that care team drove and showed up for adoption day and were there surrounding that family in the courtroom is
Oh, sweet.
their new life started together. And then they kept serving that family. I've had opportunity to visit even with the children and talk to them a little and hear their stories and seeing them celebrate with those adults, the moments in their lives, those adults showing up for them, for example, at a church activity and saying, "How can we spend time with these kids here? Let's rally up the dinner plates and go get the dinner together and let's sit with them and be with them." And then seeing these children have a connection to these adults and want to do things to thank them and celebrate those adults in their lives who are now part of their lives. So the foster mom has sent me pictures before of them, for example, taking little thank yous over to the care team members who are now a part of their lives. So
Oh, sweet.
I love those stories.
Yeah. Really real friendships and
Real
community that's being built there.
Yeah, absolutely. And to know that those kids think of those as their adults. Those are their people. I have a care team where it's a single foster mom, and this care team is also closed now, but because they only serve, usually 6 months to a year.
Right.
So, single foster mom, 2 children in the home of very different ages, and we know as moms when our children have a wide variety of there's a big age spread, you're torn between teenage stuff and younger kiddo stuff, and that's a lot to navigate.
Mhm.
So, the care team leaders in particular would often watch those kiddos in that home, and I think about the fact that during a spring break when kids, these 2 kiddos were gonna be home, that the place that they went for care was to members of that care team, right? So now single foster mom has people that can watch those kids, and they're in a home they're familiar with, they're with adults they're familiar with, and the burden's lightened and those relationships grow. That's another beautiful example to me.
I think I love the phrase I read somewhere when you were in this pilot program for these care communities of a foster mom saying that she felt like she went from just surviving to her family actually thriving
Isn't that
because of the help of the care community.
Yeah. It's beautiful what happens when you're not just in survival mode. And
Mhm.
we have another single foster mom who had a care team, and there were teenage boys in her home who had never really had a male role model that had taught them skills. And
Mhm.
there was a man on the care team, he brought his son and they taught them how to mow the lawn. And then they would come back during the summer and check on the progress and make sure they had the right supplies and spent that time with them. So beautiful. And that foster mom has said that was their first example of that.
Wow.
So good.
I love hearing all of these stories because they're all just so unique and
Yes.
to the situation. And again, that idea of here we have these foster parents that have been brave to take that step and take that on, and then others that are supporting them in that role. It's a really beautiful thing.
It is beautiful. And I think it's important for people to know it's not easy for our foster families to say yes to a care team because that is another layer of vulnerability.
Right? You're inviting people into your space as a family, those sacred spaces.
You are, and to the most vulnerable moments of your life. I think all of us can relate to being overwhelmed, or even if we're not overwhelmed, navigating something that looks messy or is messy and we know other people don't understand it, to say yes, to come into all of that, step into all the spaces that I don't normally share with other people. So it takes vulnerability on their part. And there's also the vulnerability of being let down. You know, they get this team that's supporting them, and maybe people on the team aren't really believing that they're making a difference in this, so they show up less. And then the family feels like, well, where did that help and friendship go? So we try to be really careful. We've learned, unfortunately, the hard way. Some of our lessons learned are that we need to keep mentoring these care teams and make sure they're staying a part of the lives of the family. Or maybe if that's not happening, then we can end the care team and find other ways to support the family. But they genuinely, as foster families and as these kids come to love and rely on those friendships. And so we want to be really intentional about that. That said, I want people to know that anyone can do this. And it's
Mhm.
not hours and hours a month or hours and hours a week. You know, the people that agree to be care team leaders really are in contact with that family every week. So they've got a little more of a weekly responsibility, but the rest of the team really can say, this is what I can do. I can bring dinners. And you could even say, I can bring dinners only on Tuesdays. And that's what works for me. Or you can say, I can dry carpool. Or you can say, I can be a friend. Or I can do a yard project, but I'm not really the babysitter. So
Mhm.
everyone's needed. Everyone has a role. And the outcome of it is so impactful that it's worth it. It's worth that time. It's worth it for these kids. It's worth it for these foster parents who are doing this hard work. And it is unifying to serve alongside other people in this way it unlocks the potential of community in a way
Right.
that is just simple and beautiful.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, our care community, I'm not a volunteer. I kind of oversee and make sure
Right.
it's functioning well, and but I did participate in this. Our care community did a 12 days of Christmas
Oh,
for our foster family, and we
yes.
actually got that as an idea from the woman from Utah Foster Care that oversees us told us
Yes.
another care community was doing that, and we were like, "Oh, I like that idea." And so I jumped in and helped with that, and even that little thing, everyone saying what they wanted to do for their 12 days was so unique and different and simple. I mean, it wasn't a ton of money, it wasn't really hard, but it was so fun to see all the different ways people wanted to serve in that way, so
How
and yeah,
fun.
when everybody's doing it, it's a fun, easy thing to do.
It
Yeah.
is. I love it. I love hearing that. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. I can't hear these stories enough of all the beautiful things that are happening around the state with these care teams.
Yes, yes, it's good to hear about the good. Well, what if someone is interested in either joining a care team or forming one? You said anyone could form one. What should they do if they're interested in that?
The easiest answer is go to utahcarecommunities.org. And if you don't remember that, but you remember Utah Foster Care, you can just search it. But that redirects to our website, and you put your information in. And depending on which part of the state you are in, our staff contact you and have a conversation. Are you interested in joining one? Are you interested in leading one? Do you have a faith congregation we can connect with? Do you have a space we can come do a presentation? And you can invite friends and neighbors, and we'll just talk and share stories. And a lot of our current care teams being built now that we're out of the pilot phase are based on individuals just stepping forward and saying, I want to do this with my family and friends. So even if you think I really only have an hour a month, go to the website, fill out the form. We will reach out. We will start building. It takes a little time in the building
Mhm.
phase, right? So
Yes.
it's not an immediate, you're going to get a family to serve tomorrow. And while you're waiting for a care team to be built around you, we have a lot of other ways you can volunteer and engage. We can connect you with families and other ways to serve. We know this works, we know what it does. And it really is as simple as just reach out and we'll walk you through the process.
Right, and once you get that team formed and assigned a family, it's generally a 6 month to a year commitment, is that right?
Absolutely. 6 months to a year, longer than a year. It's just hard to sustain that for that long a period of time.
Mhm.
I want to say that the end, whether it's 6 months or a year, isn't the end of the relationship with the foster family and the kiddos in the home, though, that those
Right.
live beyond.
Yes, of course. Well, I have loved our conversation with each other, Tammy, and I do have listeners from all over. And
Wonderful.
so I do love to kind of end each episode with general advice and encouragement. And so, what general and advice and encouragement would you give to anyone that's thought about wanting to volunteer or help with foster care in some way, or just wanting to know about the ways they can support the vulnerable children in their own communities?
It's such a powerful question, isn't it? How can we help in our own community? I love Sharon Eubank. She is a hero of mine and her humanitarian work. And she talks about serving where you are and making a difference where you are. So I would say start in your own neighborhood and community, your faith community, your general community. Find someone who's doing foster care and maybe they aren't a traditional foster parent. Maybe they're doing what we call kinship, which is where grandparents, aunts, uncles, siblings step up and care for children and then start to get to know them. They may not be able to share with you right away what their needs are. And we want to make sure we're not doing more harm than good, right? We all hesitate to
Right.
help because we think, I don't want to make the wrong step here. However, I think there are always right steps to take and good steps to take. So building genuine friendship, I think there are things foster parents, whether they're licensed or whether they're kinship, always need, which are people checking on them, people asking them how they are. Find out if you can drop them off a meal. Give them options, right? So if you give a little, here's a little menu of things I could do. Like, here's some of my strengths and skills. Could you pick something on here that I could do for you? I love the idea of anonymous drop-offs, right?
Mhm.
The 12 days is a beautiful anonymous thing, but you can do that kind of stuff year round. Like, we just
Right.
know, observe, here's a family, and we're gonna drop off supplies for dinner, or we're gonna drop off supplies for the kiddos, and just maybe, Google what are some good things to share. I think that when we overwhelm them with too much, that's not great, but I think start with little things because then they'll know someone is aware of them and someone will know their needs. When you can start building friendship, then they're going to lean into that relationship of trust and be able to identify their needs for you even more powerfully. But you don't have to wait for that. You can act simply by being genuine and asking how they are and being willing to listen. Ask for some understanding about what their lives look like. Don't we all want to be asked, what is it actually like for you? Because
Mhm.
one of the things Sharon Eubank says that's so powerful is our solution for someone else's problem is almost never the right answer.
Right.
So you don't need to go give them parenting advice. You don't need to find the solution for them of how to care for those kids or navigate the world of being a foster parent. You can be their friend and you can be genuine, and that will always be needed. Please don't ever underestimate the powerful impact that it has to reach out and offer support. That's where you start.
Yeah, I love that idea of writing down what you can give, and
Yes.
I think that's good for almost any situation.
Is it?
And I've shared on here before, I love the I call it the would you rather service game.
Oh, I
And
love that.
so you can, "Oh, it looks like your family might need dinner next sometime
Sure.
next week. Would you rather I bring it Wednesday or Thursday?" And so you're
Right.
leaving you're still offering in a very genuine way, but you're leaving an element of control and choice, which I'm sure many of these foster families still need to feel a little bit of that as they're navigating these different things, so but I love
Absolutely.
that idea of writing things down too,
I
that's
love
good.
that too. Like, think of the little notes we passed in elementary school, like, check
Yeah.
yes, do you want to be
Yeah.
my friend? That's really similar.
Here's the 4 things I can offer. Check 1 and pass it back by
And
Tuesday.
I will come and do that thing that you need.
Yes, such a great idea. Tammy, thank you so much. This has been so great, and I love learning and getting that new perspective, for foster parents, but also for the good that care communities are doing. So thank you for being willing to come on the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you for the opportunity to talk more about this program. And just for all of your listeners out there, please know that you are doing good where you are in your community. Obviously, because you're here listening to this, you care about that work. And if foster care isn't the thing your heart is drawn to helping, find someone to serve in another meaningful way.
That's a great message to end on. Thank you so much. That concludes my interview with Tami Carson with Utah Foster Care. And I will have links in the show notes if you want to go learn even more about these care communities that Utah Foster Care is doing, or if you're interested in becoming part of one. All that information will be there on their website. And as always, I want to leave the encouragement that if you thought of someone while you listened to this episode that might benefit from the information that was shared here today, please share this episode with them. And I will always take your 5-star ratings or reviews wherever you listen to this podcast. And of course, this week, I hope that you can find a way to do something more to help lift, inspire, or make a difference.